Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I like to draw on a couple of articles which are painting a picture of Tories finally coming to the realisation that they've got nowhere else to go. But there was a particular phrase that irritated me in one of the articles. The suggestion that those close to Sunak feel that they've actually been trying, that they've tried everything and have no more ideas left. They've tried nothing and they should be ashamed. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So in the Huffington Post, first of all, the article talks about a week in which Sunak was battered and now Tory MPs have had the wind knocked out of them. In many ways, the last week was a good one for analysing Sunak's complete unsuitability for office. He may not be as cavalier, reckless or even amoral as Boris Johnson. He may not be as certifiably insane as Liz Truss. But both his character and experiences did not lend themselves well to high office. He has a delicate ego, which caused him to cancel his meeting with the Greek PM this week. An act that had even his own supporters shaking their heads in disbelief. It made it all too easy for Starmer to shred him to pieces at PMQs. Even the King seemed to be in on the act. Meeting Sunak at COP, he wore a tie with Greek flags all over it. I'm sure it was in honour of his father, rather than I'm sure he wasn't trolling Sunak. Maybe just a little bit. But if anyone thought that Sunak was still going, this last week seemed to be the point where the wheels finally came off. But there was a paragraph in the Sunday Times today, and it really set me off. I have said countless times, Sunak had relatively easy ways in which he could try to appeal to voters. Was he going to be able to turn the tables? Was he going to be able to get himself in a position to win the election? I don't know, possibly not. But he had easy ways to really close that gap down. I understood the realities of party dynamics. Sometimes people think the Prime Minister's just like king for a few years. No, they've got to keep their party together. Leader rules by consent. I understood that he took over a very divided and deeply tribal party. I also tried to take account of the fact that Sunak needed to steer himself by the manifesto he inherited and the realities of Conservative politics. I wasn't trying to suggest, for example, well, if only he behaved like a Labour Prime Minister, would it all be fine? I get that, he's a Conservative Prime Minister. He's not going to do that. But there were things that Sunak could have done, which, I'll go over a few in a moment. But first, this section in the article, I'll quote it. Some in number 10 are despondent. They're really beaten. They keep marching themselves up the hill and it's not working. One senior Tory said they're totally out of ideas. One of them said, we're doing everything, but it's not working. We're doing everything, but it's not working. What? What are they doing? Let's go over exactly what Sunak and his team have been doing. They began by cancelling a manifesto promise on house building. Weak. He should have told his MPs, any MPs threatening to rebel against the vote, because that's what caused him to pull the vote. There was going to be rebellion. He might have lost it. And okay, new Prime Minister, you don't want to be losing a vote. I get that. He should have gone to his MPs and said, this was a manifesto promise. You campaigned for it. Now, if you suddenly decided you don't want to campaign for our manifesto, then you can join Labour on the opposition benches. Anyone who votes against this, anyone, is going to find themselves on the opposition benches. 3-line whip, and I mean it. He had an early opportunity to bare his teeth and give the Tories the right bastard of a leader that they secretly love. Then he made his New Year pledges. Now, in theory, that was a good idea, but he needed to link them with voters' real concerns and be willing to achieve them. Halving inflation was always a fiddle, but the thing is, what's the importance of inflation to people? Standard of living. They're still seeing the cost of living rising. So even though he claims he achieved it, it earns him no credit with those struggling voters. However, he could have helped. He could have applied the real windfall taxes to oil and gas companies, used the money to compensate energy companies for additional costs of fuel, and then told Ofgem to get energy prices back down. That would have saved ordinary families, including those target voters, hundreds of pounds without costing the taxpayer a thing. And as we're talking windfall taxes, not even against Conservative economic ideas. Indeed, wasn't it the outgoing CEO of Shell, I think, who said that they needed to be taxed more at the time. They just didn't want to do it because they're conditioned to protect corporate profits over ordinary families. But the thing is, corporate profits may throw you the odd donation, but they don't vote. Next, growing the economy. The economy is stagnant and cannot be turned around quickly. He had no chance with this one. However, he could still have helped the intended outcome of growing the economy, like better wages, better job opportunities. He needed to tear down trade barriers. He failed to do so. He did good work with the Windsor Framework, but that just stopped trade barriers getting worse. He failed to use the opportunity to improve them. Now, granted, this would have been genuinely difficult. This wasn't an easy one, and it may have been impossible, given the Brexit position within the party, but he could have tried. There was no effort. Next, reducing debts. He'd already committed to increasing debt for the next 5 years. Absolutely mad that he got his Chancellor to announce increased borrowing beyond the next election and then said he was going to reduce debt. It was impossible to achieve. The fact that he's now lying and saying that it is going down when it's going up is irrelevant because the lies are being called out, even in much of the mainstream media. Next was getting NHS waiting lists down. Now, this was possible if he'd intended to deal with NHS pay. But although he took action with nurses, although not as quickly as he could have done, he's allowed doctors to strike throughout the year. He's only just appointed a health secretary who now says she wants to work with doctors rather than attack them in the press. So this made it impossible to get waiting lists down. You can't say you're going to get waiting lists down and then let NHS staff go on strike for a year. It's like he made the promise without having a plan, as if he just expected waiting lists to naturally come down because now the country had a Prime Minister who didn't spend all day throwing wine and cheese down his neck. That's not what I call trying everything. That's not even trying anything. As for stop the boats, okay, a nod to the right of his party. He needs to keep them on side. I'm not going to judge him too harshly for that. But he was still making a rod for his own back. He then tried presenting himself to the nation as a tech bro, saying he was going to establish a new Silicon Valley in the UK, Cambridgeshire, I think. Not only was he trying to present the sort of grand vision that voters are now put off by after so many letdowns, but he was presenting a grand vision that target voters went, what's that? I don't know what that is. Then after the Uxbridge by-election, he became convinced that he could win votes by being anti-pedestrian. Completely failed to understand that the ULEZ issue only stuck because the people of that constituency didn't understand it. Like the most famous takeaway was someone with a Tesla thinking they were going to be paying it. You know, once it was implemented, I said at the time they were going to see it would be fine. Once it was actually in place, they'd go, oh, is that it? Oh, I didn't realise. Oh, that's fine. For the vast majority anyway. But no, he took a particular local issue at a particular time that people misunderstood and thought he could make it national and last up to the election. He talked about making it harder to install 20-mile-an-hour zones, even though these are popular with his target voters. He could have learned from Uxbridge that actually what people are concerned about is their living standards dropping in the push for net zero. He could have announced an acceleration of plans for rolling out charging points, for compensating people in low emission zones with scrappage schemes to get used cars which are compliant. And the beauty of that is a lot of those spending commitments would have been for a few years' time. So he'd have been dumping it on Labour anyway and getting the credit. He could have tried to win over both camps. Those who understand the need for net zero, and there's a hell of a lot of Conservative voters do, and those who go, oh yeah, I'm fine with that, I just don't want to pay for it. Instead, he pissed off the first group, and the second now are starting to see that the issues weren't what they were told. In fact, at the time of the by-election, I expressed surprise and deep disappointment that Labour were not at least trying to smudge the Tory lies by explaining, oh, actually, it's Boris Johnson that started ULEZ, and it was Boris Johnson that promoted the expansion. But now I'm thinking that Sunak made such an arse of himself after winning that it was worth it for Labour to lose that by-election just to see months of Sunak digging himself a hole. The ideas have since been dropped. They were dropped from the King's Speech. And speaking of transport, he then cancelled HS2, the only thing the Tories were doing which could be even considered infrastructure. He'd already scaled the plans back as Chancellor and now cancelled them altogether as PM. No engagement, no discussion with Parliament, nothing, just cancel them. Thus ensuring that the only legacy the Tories will leave is death, poverty and stagnation. And now where are we? The Tory party is still divided because he didn't take the opportunity to stamp his authority on his MPs. As mad as it seems, it's actually possible we could end up with another leader deposed. I don't know how likely it is, but the fact that it is even possible is incredible. I'd really like to sit down with these people who think they've done everything, but it's not working. I'd like to sit down with them in all honesty and ask them, what do you think you've done? And how did you expect it to work exactly? Anyone who can say that they've been trying everything and it's not working should either not be an MP or a political advisor, because they're as crap at politics as Sunak himself. Because that's what I keep saying irritates me the most. It would be one thing if it was like, if they were just trying to keep the Tory party stable while Sunak ransacked our national assets. I could understand that. He's a greedy man who likely entered politics purely to satisfy his greed. But this suggests that they thought they were actually trying to win voters over, that they were trying to close the poll gap. It's the stupidity I can't abide. The evil I can understand. Evil people are highly motivated to achieve power. I just can't abide the stupid. It's embarrassing being ruled by stupid evil. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.